Africa. Well, Muslims across Africa and the world celebrate Eid al-Adha amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Zimbabwe businesses shot and streets deserted in Harare as security forces increased patrols to stop planned anti-government protests. Plus, European Union removes Algeria from its updated list of countries allowed to enter the bloc during the pandemic. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. Today is Eid al-Kabir, and Muslims around the world are celebrating this day in commemoration of the willingness of Prophet Ibrahim to follow Allah's commands to sacrifice his son Ismail, but a ram is slaughtered instead. The festival is usually celebrated in grand style with Muslim faithful gathering in large numbers at prayer grounds to commemorate the day. But this year, it is celebrated on a low key due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as many countries caution against large gatherings and breach of protocols.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Well, back here in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, his family members and some aides also joined the Eid al-Kabir celebration by observing the Eid prayers within the presidential villa in Abuja. The president and the first family observed all the physical distancing protocols during the prayers with a clear distance and margin among them. Usually, the president will travel to his country home in Daura, Katsina State for the celebration, but decided to stay back because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The president had earlier advised Nigerians to continue to exercise patience and understanding over the inconveniences they are experiencing due to the measures taken to contain the spread of coronavirus.
I wish Nigerians the best of luck, and in the Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Kabir sermon, the Imam has said it all. We want security, prosperity, and well-being of all Nigerians. And I want Nigerians to be very conscious of their country, and what we inherited when we came 2015 was Boko Haram northeast and the militants in the south. Nigerians know that we have done our best. What is coming up in northwest and north central is very, very disturbing indeed. But I believe the military and the police and other law enforcement agencies, I think they could do much better. They could do much better. But we are keeping them on the alert all the time to do their duties.
Let's move to southern Africa now. In Zimbabwe, shops are shot and streets deserted as police patrols line the streets ahead of a planned anti-government protest. Authorities intensified patrols in the capital Harare and the southwestern city of Bulawayo, with videos showing heavy deployment of police on streets and barricades erected on main roads. The government has already warned that the demonstrations will be treated as an insurrection and protesters will be severely dealt with. Tensions have been rising in the country after opposition groups called for the protests to denounce allegations of corruption in government. The main organizer, the leader of a small political party, remains behind bars, facing charges of inciting violence. However, the UN Human Rights Office is urging the government to respect the right to peaceful assembly. Well, Nigel Yamutumbu, a Zimbabwean journalist, joins us now for more from Harare. Thank you, Nigel, for speaking to us today.
Sure, it's a pleasure.
You know, on Tuesday, we spoke about today's protests concerning the uncertainties surrounding it. What is the situation today? Did the protests go on as planned?
Well, essentially, the streets of Harare, in particular, were deserted with most business shops closed, and essentially the country, the capital, and the main cities in the country resembled. Death resembled sober atmosphere. People pretty much were confined to their houses and to their homes. So in terms of the objectives of this particular demonstration, I do not really think it has made any real impact in terms of people coming out into the streets. But it has made impact in that government has deployed security personnel. Government was put into some panic mode, and perhaps there could be real conversation around corruption and around the terrible situation in the country.
Yeah, tell us more about the man who organized this protest, the main organizer of this protest. We understand he's behind bars, facing charges of inciting violence. Tell us more about him.
Yes, a leader of one of the relatively small political parties in this country, Jacob Garivume, who was the one purported to be leading this call for demonstration, this call for people to exercise their right to protest, is still under arrest, and he was remanded to next week, Thursday, where he's expected to appear again. I mean, he was remanded on a charge for a crime he was yet to commit because the violence is supposed to have occurred today that he had been arrested for. But let's see how the case will unfold. But we can also report that the spokesperson for the mainstream movement for Democratic Change Alliance, Fadzai Mahere, and another prominent author and activist, Tsidangaran Bizes, have been arrested in Harare for staging relatively small demonstrations in the northern suburbs of Harare, and there were, two incidences of other activists that have been arrested. A journalist yesterday had their sister arrested for crimes apparently committed by the brother. So but these are really isolated cases. Generally, people have just been confined to their homes.
All right, then. Thank you, Nigel Yamutumbu, Zimbabwean journalist. Thank you for bringing us up to speed.
Sure.
We're still on the anti-government protest in Zimbabwe. In neighboring South Africa, Zimbabweans in the country protested at the Zimbabwean consulate in Johannesburg, but they were dispersed by police authorities quickly. Well, we have Bongani Siziba. She's a South African journalist. She spoke to me earlier on what the situation is like in South Africa. Take a listen.
Yes, good evening, Layo, and also good evening to your viewers. Yes, indeed, we saw a group of Zimbabweans, more than 50 people, around 50 people gathered at the Zimbabwean consulate here in Johannesburg, and some were gathering at the Zimbabwean embassy in Pretoria. And they were protesting. They were saying they are protesting against their government of Zimbabwe. I spoke to some people, to some of them today, Layo. Some of them are saying they are doctors. Some of them told me that they are teachers. Some of them, they told me that they are nurses who can't work in their own country because they can't survive there. Some of them even told me that they think that the current government is worse than that of Robert Mugabe because of what is happening now. The situation is there in Zimbabwe. And their frustration speaks volume of the situation that they are saying they are going through. And also, one of the protesters told me that they are angered about the arrest of a political activist and the one journalist, Hopewell Chungono, who was arrested over the weeks, overwriting about government's corruption. So these citizens are saying this is some of the things that have angered them, that have made them go to the street and protest against their government.
That's Bongani Siziba, a South African journalist there. Well, moving on, at least 12 people have been killed and several others wounded after a drunken soldier in the Democratic Republic of Congo opened fire on passers-by. One of the victims is reported to have been a 2-year-old girl. The shooting took place on Thursday in South Kivu province in the east of the country. In the wake of the incident, there have been angry protests against the Congolese army in the town of Sangay, where many roads have been blocked. Well, the European Union has removed Algeria from its updated list of countries whose citizens are allowed to enter the bloc during the coronavirus pandemic. Algeria has recently experienced the resurgence in coronavirus cases, with the current total number of infections at over 29,000. The EU safe list has countries considered as having a sufficiently good epidemiological situation and the capacity to manage the pandemic. The updated list now has Australia, Canada, Georgia, Japan, Morocco, New Zealand, Rwanda, South Korea, Thailand, Tunisia, and Uruguay, and it acts as a guideline for the bloc's member states as they seek to reopen their tourism sector. Well, the World Health Organization has warned that easing of COVID-19 restrictions could lead to a resurgence and has asked African governments to strengthen testing and contact tracing. WHO's Regional Director, Dr. Mashidiso Moeti, says African countries should remember that no one is safe until we are all safe. The continent's total number of recorded infections currently stands at around 900,000 cases, and some countries have begun easing restrictions. Others, like Morocco, have had to reintroduce restrictions after a resurgence in cases.
Today marks 6 months since WHO declared the novel coronavirus a public health emergency of international concern. At that time, there were no confirmed cases in Africa. Now, there are almost 890,000 reported cases, and about 18,000 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 on the continent. We are seeing in Africa and other parts of the world that when measures to suppress COVID-19 transmission are eased, cases creep up. So it's important that authorities and all communities have the capacities in place to react quickly and comprehensively with strong surveillance, testing, isolation, and contact tracing. These are the key strategies that need to be in place. As we adjust together to this new normal, I ask that governments, partners, and communities globally keep in mind that no one is safe until we are all safe. It's imperative that with international solidarity, we focus on equity and serving the most vulnerable among us.
Well, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa is reported to have told mourners on Thursday that the country's Agriculture Minister, Perence Shiri, succumbed to COVID-19. State-owned Herald newspaper quotes President Mnangagwa as saying that test results had shown the minister contracted the coronavirus. The president also said Mr. Shiri is to be buried on Friday in compliance with the World Health Organization guidelines. The 65-year-old died at a private hospital in the capital, Harare, on Wednesday. Well, still to come on the program. Our Africa Tech segment takes you through the world of a buzzing young Nigerian teenager who started his tech journey just at the age of 5. Details in a moment, please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. With COVID-19 aggravating an already severe hunger crisis in Zimbabwe, the United Nations World Food Programme is appealing for an additional $250 million to support a rapidly expanding emergency operation for millions that are at risk. 60% of the population is projected to be food insecure by the end of the year.
In Zimbabwe, where 60% of the population is projected to be food insecure by the end of the year, the World Food Programme today appealed for an additional $250 million. WFP said that the already severe hunger crisis is being exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. WFP is calling for international support to prevent what it calls a potential humanitarian catastrophe. A nationwide lockdown has led to massive joblessness in urban areas, while hunger in rural areas is on the rise, due to the return of now unemployed migrants to their villages and the absence of vital remittances. Hyperinflation has pushed the prices of basics beyond the means of many Zimbabweans. Due to the lack of funding, WFP will only be able to help 700,000 of the 1.8 million people it intended to reach. With additional resources, WFP hopes to reach 4 million of the most vulnerable people this year.
Well, Botswana's capital, Gaborone, has been placed under total lockdown for 2 weeks after recording 30 new cases of coronavirus. The order took effect on Thursday midnight. Kereng Masupu, the coordinator of the Presidential COVID-19 Task Force, says essential services will operate at 25% capacity and there will be no movement within the Greater Gaborone zone without a movement permit. Botswana has to date confirmed 170 cases of coronavirus and 2 deaths. Well, Somali ministers have lifted a ban on international flights that was imposed shortly after the country recorded its first coronavirus case in March. Local media reports that a cabinet meeting held on Thursday for the first time since the removal of Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khaire resolved that international flights should resume on the 3rd of August. Information Minister Mohamed Mareye, who doubles as the government spokesperson, made the announcement at the meeting that was chaired by the acting Prime Minister Mehdi Mohamed Guled. Now, the ministers also resolved that schools and universities should resume on the 15th of August. Away from the COVID-19 pandemic to the migrants crisis in Libya, Samrati, she's an Eritrean refugee who was taken by human traffickers and held captive for nearly 2 years in Libya. She survived the horrific violence and sexual abuse, and now with the help from the UN Refugee Agency, she has been evacuated to Rwanda, where she is receiving psychosocial care to help her heal from her trauma.
For Samrawit's protection, her real identity won't be revealed. She was just 18 years old when she was abducted by human traffickers who took her to Libya in 2018. With no family left in her country, Samrawit felt threatened, and facing the likelihood of forced recruitment into the military, she decided to flee Eritrea. On her search for safety, she was taken by human traffickers to a town in Sudan near the border with Libya.
When
I remember that moment, I feel terrible. First, they took us by force on our way to the market. Then they told us that we're going to Libya. Second, they raped us and threatened us with knives and guns.
Samrawit was held for 2 months in a traffickers' camp in Kufra in southeast Libya, where her captors initially demanded $6,000 for her freedom. She was bought and sold by different groups of traffickers and smugglers and held captive for 2 years, enduring torture, extortion, sexual abuse. With help from the UN Refugee Agency, Samrawit was evacuated to Rwanda last October, alongside other refugees who had been in Libya. Samrawit and other survivors also received psychosocial support to help them heal from the trauma.
I get very stressed sometimes because of everything I have been through. At the time, I felt bad. I am relieved because I didn't get pregnant or get a sexually transmitted disease.
More than 250 people rescued from Libya live in the Gashora Transit Center on the outskirts of the capital, Kigali. Most come from Eritrea, Somalia and Sudan and have been given asylum seeker status. They are given shelter, food, water and medical care. She and other survivors also receive counseling. Samrawit is focusing on her healing and has taken up English classes.
I am attending English language classes and they have asked me if I want to learn another skill like sewing. I am very happy and grateful. We have come from darkness to light.
The UN agency and other partners are calling on countries to protect refugees and migrants travelling via routes controlled by human traffickers and to hold those responsible to account.
Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. At the age of 5, many kids engage in fun activities and learn how to navigate life. But for Okwemipo Disu, he was learning how to code. Now at 14 years, the teenager has become one of the country's promising developers, building over 20 applications. This next report has more.
Meet Okwemipo Disu, a computer programmer, extraordinary media developer, developer advocate, and a keynote speaker. But what's more interesting about Okwemipo is that he's only 14 years old.
So I have a YouTube video downloader. I have a quadratic equation created with JavaScript, CSS.
Okwemipo, who is mostly self-taught, started his journey into the tech world at the age of 5 when he got his first laptop. With the help of his dad, he started coding at 11 years. His first application was a scientific calculator. So far, he's worked on over 20 applications.
I started tech with gaming, then I started with Visual Basic as at 11 years old. Then I moved into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then, I think learning is a gradual process before you start working on projects. So I specialize on different technologies like JavaScript, AI, PHP, Python, and deep learning, data science, and every field in tech. I love tech a lot, and I'm a cloud-ordinary media developer.
While a lot of people might consider the COVID-19 pandemic as a setback, for Okwemipo, it's an added advantage.
I've been learning a lot. For example, I've taken course on AI, data science, ML, different technologies also. I moved into Android development. I moved into AI fully. Then also I'm working on my project. My project is the main thing I've been working on in this COVID-19 era.
Since he was 10, Okwemipo has always loved multinational technology company IBM and aspired to be an IBMer. He started using the technologies at the same age, hoping that one day his aspirations will become a reality. Well, that came true. In 2019, the teenager was nominated to be a 2020 IBM Champion for Developers. In January this year, he was selected with 603 others, and with that, he's made some plans.
My main plan for COVID-19 is to collaborate with IBM on different technologies like IBM Watson, work with top developers, have my main time for tech, and start up my own company. Then also travel to speak at tech conferences also.
The young chap has also had his fair share of challenges, but he's not relenting when it comes to what he loves.
And on that note, we end Network Africa. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.